Hi, thank you for joining us. This is Atlanta Wilson Trust Law Group. Amy Rafeka here. And as you know, in the month of October, we're sharing really important information about special needs law. And I'm really excited. I happen to be at a conference away from the office this week, and I'm being joined by somebody who doesn't live very close to me, but I'm in person with her. Really excited about it. This is Sarah Porris. She's out of Hartford, Connecticut. And you know how I love to introduce people, but as much as I love to introduce people, I want her to introduce herself to this community. And then we're going to really kind of get into why would I have someone from Hartford, Connecticut talking to me down in Georgia about special needs law and what Sarah focuses on as it relates to this community of special needs persons and families who have family members who are special needs. Sarah, could you please introduce yourself to the community?
Sure. Thanks so much, Amy. I'm really honored to be with you and to help your community understand these issues. So I've been a consumer protection attorney for 16 years, and mostly I've focused on debt and credit problems, identity theft, credit report issues, credit card problems, and those aren't that difficult legal issues to solve. What the causes of those and sort of the psychology around debt and the issues that knowing someone or living someone or having debt yourself causes you. So that's what I'm fascinated by, and I see how family dynamics and debt, especially when there's a vulnerable person, an elderly or disabled person who has debt or has a money management issue, can really affect the whole family. So I'm really happy to help round out the topic for you, Amy.
Well, then let's get started. So you just mentioned two very different communities. Someone who may be disabled or unable to manage their finances, and then also older persons in the elder law community. And of course, I'm very passionate about elder law because or the elder community, because I do elder law as well. So let's talk about them separately and see if there are unique issues and concerns that you've had both in your professional experience and other areas we could look out for as a community with those persons. So let's talk about the first, which is not the elder person in our community, someone who is special needs, is an adult living out in the community, maybe has the ability to work and function out in the community without supervision 100% of the time. What kinds of issues from consumer debt, from that professional experience, have you seen?
One of the first people I worked with was a man in his 20s or 30s, and his parents approached me because he had somehow racked up a whole bunch of credit card debt. He had a steady job, but somehow he was taken advantage of, or he didn't quite appreciate or understand that applying for credit cards, using them, and charging them up was going to have a cascading effect of having to repay them. And with his limited budget, sort of being a special needs individual, he wasn't really making a ton of money. He had a fixed budget, essentially. So using credit cards and then being stuck in the cycle of trying to repay those credit cards, the minimums, and trying to chip away at those high balances that he had charged up was a big challenge. So I worked sort of in conjunction with him and his parents to get a handle on what his overall ability to repay was going to be, and I counseled them on what the risks of paying or not paying were in my state. And there are risks in every state. It's a little different, the way your credit card companies will pursue you if you don't pay and things like that. So you have to consult someone in your area if you're going to make a decision about whether to pay or not pay a credit card. So that was one situation. And more recently, I've been approached by a gentleman who has multiple disabilities and doesn't work, and so lives on a fixed income, lives on disability income, and a person very close to him who he has known forever, who's been an assistant to him for a long, long time, eventually, more recently, took advantage of him. I think either took over some of his credit cards or opened some cards in his name and charged them up to very high balances. So now he's being held liable. He's being hassled by those creditors for repayment, and of course is unable to, based on his fixed income. So those are some of the issues that can arise with adults living independently, attempting to live independently, either being taken advantage of by just how easy it is to get credit, or by someone close to you, close to the person who's disabled, who can somehow easily take advantage. It's a real shame, but there is a way out of it, and there is a way around it, but it can cause a lot of stress for everybody.
So what we have here is we have someone who completely taken advantage of on one sense. Well, both of them really were taken advantage of, but in very different ways.
Correct.
Someone was a trusted caregiver, and someone was actually the act of that person themselves, but just didn't recognize the consequences and just didn't quite understand, debt management or even really how credit worked. Is that fair?
That is definitely fair. And just as an aside, I mean, that's not an uncommon thing for, say, a young adult to have happen as well. So as far as if you're doing a plan or you're speaking with clients who have children who are coming out of college and are exploring the world of credit and then make mistakes with credit, it's the same idea as having someone who's disabled be sort of taken advantage of by the very easy availability of expensive credit, like high interest credit cards and other types of credit products like that.
So with that population, the younger adult population, or even just an adult population, again, not talking about the elderly in that vulnerable population, what are some things that you can do to help prevent that from happening from your experience? And then two, if you think that's happening, what would you recommend a family do?
I think most of the prevention and then the resolving of these issues really revolves around credit reports. I know that seems a little strange, but obtaining a credit report is a really good tool for identifying a problem or diagnosing whether somebody has been taken advantage of and to what extent, and then to assisting the person to repair that problem. So if you aren't sure, if you're the parent of someone who has special needs and you can get that your child to obtain a credit report, then you can look and see what accounts are open, go over the information with him or her and say, is this yours, is that yours? And maybe the parents should know whether there's a car loan and should be no other credit, and if there's 2 or 3 credit cards or things like that. So using a credit report to evaluate, and then using a dispute to the credit bureaus or to the creditors or both as a tool to stop the damage, to inform the credit bureaus or the creditors that this is someone who's been taken advantage of, that this account was not opened by the individual, it might have been opened by someone else, so sort of a situation of identity theft. If your card has been taken or used by someone like a trusted person close to to the disabled person, there is a dispute process. You can communicate directly with the credit card company that certain charges were not the individual's, and as long as the use of the card stops until it's all resolved, that's a way to sort of stop the bleeding, if you will.
How often would you recommend that they get a credit report for some, maybe a parent or the guardian of someone who has special needs, but they're out there in the world and could obtain potentially credit or be taken advantage of by someone? How often would you recommend that family member pull that person's credit or ask that person to pull their credit?
Every year, and that goes for everybody. That just goes for everybody from age. I always say that credit is important from age 18 to 88. I know that it's sort of a catchphrase of mine. Of course, you can't really get credit until you're 18, and then certainly people above age 88 could use and take advantage of credit, but typically that's a very long lifespan of credit. So any one of us in that age range should be mindful that there are maybe many mistakes on a credit report, and there is a mechanism for obtaining a free report from the 3 major credit reporting agencies every year. One of them is in Atlanta, Equifax. The others are Experian and TransUnion. Mm-hmm. And the way to obtain free credit reports there's a website, www.annualcreditreport.com, and that is the one true free credit reporting, way to get your free credit reports every year from each of the 3 major credit bureaus. You don't get a score for free, but score is less important, I think, than the accuracy of what's on the credit report.
And I've heard too, like maybe do one in the beginning, one in the middle, one in the end.
Correct. Because you can get one from each of the 3 companies per year, you can spread them out and obtain them every 4 months. I think if you're looking at credit for the first time, even getting 1 or 2 of the 3 can be helpful. Mm-hmm. And then for consistent monitoring, you'll want to spread out obtaining each of those for 3 years, or pay, if it's that important, pay a little bit monthly to a service. But you should not have to pay or put a credit card in to obtain a credit report through annualcreditreport.com. And for someone who's older, you can download a PDF of an application to obtain the credit reports through the mail. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't have to be online. There's a phone number actually and a way to apply by mail. So anybody should be able to access that.
Well, and we've talked a little bit probably about some similar things that happen in the senior community who, especially if they have special needs, in the sense of they cannot manage their finances any longer, or just can't manage as well their finances, which is much more common than many think. So for someone like that who, is older, probably not obtaining credit in the same frequency as someone, say, younger, especially who is in, family building mode and things like that, much more frequent in their obtaining of credit. But someone who is older, who just doesn't probably even pay attention much anymore to that area of their life and maybe can't manage that. What have you seen with that community?
I think the range of credit issues unique to seniors are things like having co-signed on a car loan for a grandchild. So I think that you get to an age, whether you're a parent or a grandparent, where your children or your grandchildren come to you for assistance as they're flying, as they're leaving the nest, if you will. They need some help here and there, and I see a lot of car and motorcycle loans co-signed by grandparents, and ultimately, usually the younger person seems to struggle financially and default, and then the grandparent, as well as the person who was supposed to be the beneficiary of the car loan or motorcycle loan or boat loan or some other kind of credit, they're both liable. And so this person who might be, it's still in their 50s or 60s and working and credit is still important, finds themselves in a default situation, and so that can hurt your credit score, and can cause a problem, and you could be personally held liable for repayment of that loan as well. So the tendency to help younger people with credit is something, and I feel like that's a bit of, you're sort of being taken advantage of a little bit. You want to be helpful, you want to trust the grandchild or the child, and that can turn sour. Other unique issues to seniors would be if someone's receiving care in the home, or there's situations where the person's in a nursing home or in the hospital for a period of time, and access to that person's personal information so like a nurse or a caregiver can access their checkbook, their social security card, their bills, their date of birth, all the things you need to open credit cards in someone's name. And so those things should be safeguarded. So if someone's coming into the home, whether it's to clean or to take care of a senior, I say that the family member should be very careful with the checkbook and other things not lying around, so that there isn't any temptation to obtain that information.
Well, this is really great information. I appreciate you so much sharing this information. I know it sounds a lot like what we talked about today, just is common sense, right? Myself, it's common sense for me to pull my credit. But, I'm not sure I've ever made that connection with this community, the special needs community, making sure that those persons, once they become an adult over the age of 18, and credit becomes available for them instantly, they can be taken advantage of, they can get themselves into trouble very quickly without realizing necessarily or appreciating the credit concerns that we should have. And so if you have someone in your family, such as someone who is working to be independent in the community but could be financially vulnerable to many of the things that we talked about, definitely recommend what Sarah, she's the expert in this. Sarah mentioned with regards to, pulling that credit report or having them pull the credit report as an estate planning attorney. If, there are ways that we can help families actually get permission on behalf of the parent to pull that estate planning the credit report for that child, even though they are an adult. So we can help families kind of work through some of the unique issues around protecting that adult child. And as well, we can work around some of those issues of an adult child working to protect their parent who is aging and more financially vulnerable. So Sarah, if someone is up in your community and is watching this, because people can watch it anywhere, how would they get a hold of you?
My name is Sarah Porris. I'm at www.sarahporris.com. Google, reveals a lot about people. You just put in an approximation of my name and you probably get me. And, no matter where you are in the country, I think I'm a member of the National Association of Consumer Advocates, and their website is www.consumeradvocates.org, and you can search for an attorney by state. So if you or someone you know has a consumer issue or specific to credit or credit reporting or identity theft or financial vulnerability, feel free to look at consumeradvocates.org to find a consumer protection attorney in your area.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciated this. And it's unique information. I don't think anyone is talking about this. And so I'm so grateful that I had a chance to be here with Sarah live in person and go live and share that information with you this month, while we are celebrating special needs law. Thank you so much for joining us today. And if you have a comment or a question for either myself or Sarah about this, just drop it in the comments and we will make sure that it gets answered. So my name, Amy Rafeka, Atlanta Wills and Trust Law Group, here with Sarah Porris. And we are super grateful that you joined us this evening. Thank you.